Hello and welcome. Today's talk to you is brought by me, Bhante Dhammarakita, and the company of many ants and flies. It's that time of day. So I'll try not to get disrupted by such distractions. And the first comment with regards to meditation is, when meditating, I use my breath as a focus. My mind sometimes gets very busy, noisy, and I lose focus on my breath. I have to use a word to regain my focus. I use Buddho before going back to my breath. Is it okay to do this? Anything's okay if it works. Your objective when using the breath as a meditation object is to maintain, as you quite rightly say, focus. So your conscious awareness is directed to the breathing in and the breathing out. Another way we can use to calm our overly active, noisy minds is to use a mantra, such as a word, often a two-syllable word like Buddho, Buddho. This is encouraged when you are going about your daily activities, or perhaps practicing walking meditation, when you're not having to concentrate on your actions so much, but you want to reduce thinking. When you first sit to meditate, you could use a period of time to try and allow or assist your mind in the settling process by either chanting. This is a good way, a little chanting, as we do at the live chanting in the morning, just a short chanting session followed by a short meditation session. It just allows your body to settle and become relaxed, and your mind to settle and become calm and clearer of thought. But if your mind is particularly active, say after a busy day at work, or a lot of activities during the day, as opposed to when you first wake up in the morning, then yes, you can use a mantra such as this, but you mustn't lose sight of the objective, which is to keep your focus of attention on just the breath. So really it is better to practice this and this only, just that. And it is with practice that you will become more skilled at maintaining focus on the breath. If you use a diversionary tactic, then you won't develop the skill to keep mindfulness on the one object. So, what you might be doing in this instance is flicking from one meditation object, the breath, when you lose mindfulness, because it's easier switching to Buddho. And you may use that as a key, as a reminder to coming back to focus your attention on the breath. But it is better to just know you've lost mindfulness on the breath and continue thereafter to observe the breath, making the determination to do just that. Observing the breath as you breathe in, as you breathe out. Is it long? Is it short? Is it deep? Is it shallow? One way of keeping interest in the breath is to have interest in its qualities. Notice the temperature of the breath as you breathe in. It is either cool if the ambient atmosphere is cooler, or it may be warm if the atmosphere is warm. But when you exhale, the temperature of the breath will be unnoticeable, because the air you have inhaled has become the same temperature that of the body. So you won't notice it so much at the tip of the nose, if that's where you're attempting to observe it. I personally when using this tactic, would have been more inclined towards just noticing the whole body of air as one inhales, its qualities, depth or shallowness, length or shortness, and the temperature, those qualities, and then exhaling. So maintaining this interest, but without overthinking, without judgment, without analytical thought, just knowing you're breathing in, knowing you're breathing out. When your mind switches to other subject matters, then if you catch it in time, if you notice that you're thinking of something and that leads to another thought, and before you know it, you're in this chain of thinking, one thought leading to another, to another, to another, sometimes it's okay just to let that be when you first come to sit and practice meditation, or even if you've been meditating for a long time after a particularly active day, this may be the case. Just sit and observe, and know that you're observing this thinking process going on, noticing that it is thoughts about the past, things that have happened that cannot be changed, noticing that it's thoughts about the future, things that haven't happened yet and are just imagination, that are disrupting your attention on observing the breath. So it isn't necessary always to complicate the issue with another meditation object and switching from one to the other, even if that is key to reminding you. I mean, why use another word? If your language is English, say to yourself, look, I've stopped watching the breath now, come on, pull yourself together, mindfulness, watch the breath, and make the determination then to just observe this until the end of your time for sitting meditation is up. So, hi Bante, is there any ways I can support you, like donations of robe, cash, food or other daily needs from overseas? So our 4 requisites, robes, food, shelter and medicine, are usually met locally where we live, for practical reasons of course. In fact, I used a single robe wearer's practice, one of the Dhutanga practices. So although robe offering is quite popular in these Buddhist countries, I receive robes if they're offered, but then I donate them to nearby temples, generally, because I have one set of robe which I've made a determination, and in the tradition I'm used to, you're only allowed that one set. A lower robe, an upper robe and an outer robe. So it's a set of 3 pieces of cloth, and that is all we need. When it comes to cleaning those items, we just alternate and switch. We can also have a bathing cloth, which is a second lower robe if you like. But with practice and mindfulness, we can easily maintain our existence with just the one set without difficulty. There's no need to have an abundance of choice and robes. This is just going against the principles of what we practice. So I stick to my one set. I have already been offered robes from abroad, from Thailand, by the people who offered these last time a few years ago. So they have been sent already. And it is traditional at this time of year, or at the Katina, at the end of the Rains retreat, that we receive as a Sangha robe offerings, but me, as I am practicing alone, without the necessary quorum of 4 other monks, there need to be 5 monks who have spent the Rains retreat together in order to receive Katina, or have a Katina festival, which is where you receive cloth. Is officially the ceremony, but many other things get offered also. And I'm not entitled to those privileges, having spent the time alone. And those ceremonies, those privileges are more directed at groups of Sangha members anyway. But I do have new sets of robes coming. I'm very well supported each day in food by the activity of my Pindapata going on into the village and then the town, walking each day with my bowl, receiving sufficient food for myself, and then the rest to share out and donate to others locally whom are in need. So food I'm okay for, and medicine, well, I'm fortunately in good health and hope, or have experienced when being ill in the past, that even hospital services, those of doctors and surgeons, have been offered to me willingly also by way of dana locally. So for overseas, as well as by sending those actual items, it's a bit difficult. Really, just your support, your presence, your encouraging comments, and the questions you ask are really support enough from wherever you are. If you wish to make any donations to contribute towards, because of course we don't use money, monks, but there are costs, and those costs are met by any donations that are received by way of financial donations by people watching wherever they may be, and those transactions are handled by lay supporters here in order that I don't have to handle cash, so to speak. So internet for the phone, I can do things like that quite easily online, and even these days, you know, visas and aeroplane tickets. So there's not much that can't be done these days, even whilst not using money. But I try not to get too involved with that. So there is a on the description page of this channel is a in fact there's a new link. There were two links, and they didn't make much sense to me, but they worked well. A PayPal and a Buy Me a Coffee. I've got rid of the Buy Me a Coffee thing because I didn't really think it was that appropriate. It's not inappropriate, there's nothing wrong with it, but in the end those cash donations all go into the same place. So cutting out all the middlemen as possible, there's just one link that takes you to a window with all sorts of options depending on where you are to make donations if you wish to, and they're always gratefully received. So that's how you do that. So just go to the channel description page. Being full moon day, I haven't eaten after noon today, which made me wonder, Bhante, if you noticed any health benefits from only eating once a day. So I mean, I can't say I've noticed any particular health benefits because I wasn't having any particular, well, it's in such a long time, I can't even remember now. I've been on 8 precepts for nearly 10 years, eating just once a day. Whether my health was better 10 years ago than it is now, I honestly can't tell you that. I don't know. But I've certainly haven't noticed any ill effects. I've had some times when because of the way we get food, going out, you know, I was reliant at one time for a few years on just temple offering food that's offered by temples in India, Hindu temples, which was fairly sort of lacking in content, really. It's substantial enough, but it was just a lot of plain rice and some very thin soup. So I was lacking a lot of sort of nutrients and vitamin B particularly. So I did at one point have to take some vitamin B subs, you know, like vitamin tablets. But here I'm fortunate that by those donations we were just talking about, they sell Marmite here, if you know what that is. It's a yeast extract which contains lots of vitamin substitutes. So I usually make sure that there's some Marmite here. It's also considered one of the tonics, so you could have like a hot cup of Marmite I don't tend to do that. I just usually put it on some crackers or something at my meal time. But you can have it as a broth drink, something like that. So that's enough. But health benefits through eating once a day, yeah, I mean, you're not going to sleep on a full tummy. Many people eat an evening meal late into the evening and then they go to sleep not long afterwards. And, you know, I've never thought that can be that healthy. So even when I was eating dinner, I used to like to stay up late at night, so it didn't seem to bother me so much. But I did notice that a lot of people I knew would have a big meal and then fall asleep in front of the TV and then go to bed. And, you know, that food's just sitting around. It's not being digested. I think we, I mean, as a practice, tend to practice walking meditation after our meal time, or we're doing our chores, so we're moving around, we're quite active. So I think that's more to be considered, how we're using up the energy from the food that we consume, as opposed to how often you consume it, and also how much. I certainly find one benefit is you don't get so lethargic, and tiredness, laziness during meditation can be a problem for many. That is often resolved by looking at your diet and reducing the amount you eat. So I can't say any specific health benefits. And also where I've been traveling a lot, if anything, you know, the diet's change can be so variable, and we have no real choice over what it is we eat or we don't eat. But good to do that every full moon day, twice a month, or once a month, twice a month, if you can, once a week. Maybe take one day of the week at the weekend when you're not working, or some day that you have off, to just have one meal before noon, or have breakfast and then a meal more towards lunchtime, but then don't eat anything in the afternoon or evening. And you will notice the benefits more of the mind than the physical benefits. They're not so noticeable. But the clarity of mind, because once you've freed yourself from having to think about food in the afternoon, you have done that. It is very liberating. You don't have that chore of thinking about, cooking again and choosing what you're going to have and then clearing up after it and then feeling full. You know, none of that to come. You can sit with your mind clear, ready to meditate. Dear Bhante, I once read that karma needs the thought, the intention, and the action. If one of these three are not there, karma will not be effective. So there's all sorts of ideas surrounding karma. Karma just means actions of body, speech, and mind. So this is correct in some respects, in that thought is the forerunner of all things we do, even if we don't notice it sometimes. So sometimes we might say something without thinking and think it's just come out, but actually that's just it's a lack of mindfulness, because speech is one of the hardest things to be mindful over, bearing in mind the third step of the Noble Eightfold Path, right speech, to speak kindly and inoffensively and usefully and truthfully. These can often be forgotten, and you might just even stub your toe on a rock and say a swear word, seemingly without thinking, but really boiling it right down to the smallest degree, you have thought. The thought has been there, it's just become so automatic, the words have come out. So we do think before we do anything. But what's important here is what you say, intention. So karma just means all actions of body, speech, and mind, and they are either karmically positive, neutral, or negative. However, without intention, so if you accidentally tread on an ant walking along, you haven't intentionally killed an ant, so it is karmically neutral. It isn't karmically negative, as you might think. But if you intentionally slap a mosquito, where intention is there, all of the 5 precepts are also intention-based. There has to be intention. Whereas the intention is there, this is directly killing, so breaking the first precepts. So assuming thought is the forerunner of all things, intention is this, the next step. And the action itself then can be positive or negatively karmic, so or neutral. So to give dana, offer food to monks, or donations for their needs, their requisites, or whatever to the temple, is karmically positive. But if your intention is to get something back for that, say in many religions people donate lots of their service, their goodwill, their money, their cash, hoping that it will lead to a better life. Now, they'll pass their exams or pass their driving tests or get a promotion at work, or they'll be fit and healthy for the rest of their life. Now, indirectly, the karmic consequences of doing good has good results, but not that directly. So you can't buy long life, you can't buy happiness in that direct sense. So that's wrong intention. But if it is simply just to support a monk to live another day and continue the practice that you've seen, and you see as of benefit not only to that monk, but to yourself, because you benefit from that monk sharing their experience and also showing you that it can be done, and you also have other degrees of practice to aspire to, or also give you faith or confidence in the practice you are maintaining yourself at the moment as a layperson, by seeing other people in the world, monastics, monks and nuns, practicing the same but more intensively, gives you confirmation and confidence in your own practice that you are doing yourself. So this is a good intention behind those good actions. So it is intentions and actions based, yes. Hello Bhante. This talk appears pleasing and dense. Is Panya a personal wisdom about our inner world, wisdom about the outside world stroke life, or both? I think this is a translation. Appears pleasing and dense. Dense. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. So wisdom that we're trying to develop is the understanding. It's really establishing right view, the understanding of the characteristics of existence, that everything is impermanent, so anicca in Pali, suffering or unsatisfactory, dukkha in Pali, and anicca, dukkha, anatta, that all things are out of our control, or not self, that these personalities of ours, these what we think we are, I'm a monk, or you may be a waiter in a restaurant, or the CEO of a company, it doesn't matter what you believe you are, they're just results of causes and conditions that you have put in place or that surround you that cause what you happen to be at this moment in time. That is not yourself. What yourself is that which knows that, which is not a self and isn't part of conditioned things. The mind is in the its observational capacity is just that which knows. That which it is knowing, this body, physical body and thinking brain, is what goes about with this so-called persona. This is panya, the understanding of that. It's also the knowing and application and understanding of the Four Noble Truths, which includes the Noble Eightfold Path. And this is the development of wisdom. And yes, of course, that does in fact encompass all conditioned things. So all conditioned things are impermanent, unsatisfactory and out of our control, being those internal physical aspects of our lives, including physical feelings and mental emotions, so thoughts, and external influences, so nature itself, the surroundings that we are in, all that is around us, the building we're sitting in, the forest where that is, the country where that is, are all conditioned things. So subject to those three characteristics of existence. So yes, Panya is considerate and encompasses both the internal and external world. There is no separation between the two. I wish I could send you some nice new robes, Bhante. So there's another nice kind offer of robes. Maybe it's because it's getting towards that time of year, Katina time. So, but please don't. It's very difficult to send robes. Not difficult, but it's inexpensive. They have plenty of robes here in this country, albeit they're of a slightly different nature to the ones I'm used to, which are a bit more simple and basic muslin light material and this dull colour, yes, that comes from Thailand, than the more modern kind of materials they use here of much. They're even brighter than that one over there. You see the monks in the very neon, day glow orange, that's it, day glow, here, very bright. Or they're in the burgundy colour. I mean, these colours traditionally come from the local dyes, but this very bright orange thing, it's a very newish kind of thing, really, because I mean there's a saffron yellow, there's that ochre kind of orange, this bright orange thing. Colour's not that important, it's the material. For us Westerners, we definitely want to avoid any kind of sort of this polyester that's quite popular in Asia these days, you know, because it's long lasting and easy to clean qualities. But boy, do you sweat in such material, and you need this muslin, which is very absorbent, coming from the cold north, as I do, England, UK. But anyway, thank you for that kind offer. But as I say, the only way really, or practical way of making donations towards Marmite and internet credit and things like that, and maybe cat food from time to time, because it's nice to feed the local kittens and this cat that visits here, then you can make donations where I said at the channel description page. But your support, your company is sufficient support, as I keep saying. It's more than enough. We only need the bare minimum, enough. And on that note, I must just by way of gratitude to all donations I have received, which have kept this channel going. They keep me here, and they've sort of helped various travelling about to get visas arranged and all of these necessities that, you know, are incurred in modern day life, just general expenses that otherwise would have been difficult to meet through local resources, because this is not a well-off part of the world. It's you know, relatively, well, financially poor society in which I live, but I'm very well supported, spiritually and emotionally very rich. Generosity is very much there in the support they offer me, but I wouldn't want to drain their valuable resources for anything other than those bare necessities and requisites that the monks require. And how many years ago you got this monk life? Well, I got the monk life, I suppose, in about 2014-15, when I decided I'd live by 8 precepts for the rest of my life. This is not an ordination. Ordination is very much a ceremonial, official part of the process. It's about intention. But my intention was set in 2015, and I've been living like a monk. I worked for a while, part-time during that time, but I've living other than that, and that wasn't really proper work. It was just, you know, being somewhere, but I was able to meditate all the time. But I've been living this monk life for sort of getting on 10 years, but I ordained officially in 2020, so 5 years ago. But this living on 8 precepts, and also I was living taking into account a lot of these other Dhutanga practices to assist my meditation practice, by way of helping to, in the old sense of the word, the tapas practices, burning away of defilements that they use in other religions in the Indian spiritual world. I think these allowed by the Buddha, allowed Dhutanga practices of eating just once a day, having very simple one set of clothes, or in a monk's case, one set of robes, and other things we're allowed to do, helped me at that time of life, being that I was in my 40s, to really burn away the defilements that had accrued through my hedonistic lifestyle up to then. So I adopted a lot of those. So that's really how long. So unofficially about 10 years, officially 5. I was wondering, have you ever had a wardrobe malfunction while out and about, say on Pindapat? So I was asked this recently, wasn't I? So no, I haven't. I mean, we lived in monasteries. I've lived in monasteries for a long time, and you have a lot of time to practice. Like meditation, you want to get it right, so you keep practicing until you get it right. And once you get the wearing of the robes right, there's not much to go wrong with them. They can become a bit uncomfortable in the rain, they get very wet, very heavy, but they won't fall off as long as you've got it on correctly in the first place. So no, I haven't had a malfunction of that sense. And how would I get on in winter in Europe wearing just these robes? Well, I have been there, and colder places. I was up in the cold season in Nepal, just at the base of Mount Everest there. I'm staying, well, in Kathmandu, but it can be quite cold there. But I've also spent, during that, before being a monk, since 2015, several winters living in a van outside with no heating. One year it was -5 degrees at night. Now I couldn't actually go to sleep at night, I had to stay awake, otherwise you could literally die of hypothermia. So I kept myself awake and I slept during the day, but just for a few hours. But even then I'd adopted this practice. I just had some loose, what they call Thai fishing pants, which are like very loose fitting, more or less like a sabong, a lower robe, and a loose top. And I had a yak wool kind of shawl thing that I'd picked up in India on my travels there. This sort of colour, actually, still probably around my mother's house somewhere there, which became my best friend, really. It would just be enough. You could wrap it around your head to keep the heat in during these cold times. It's about realising you're not doing what other people are doing. You're not having to go and stand in queues for the bus or go to the shops. If you're practicing this monastic life, you're really having your meal. There's Pindapata. It can be cold on Pindapata, but you can walk relatively quickly. You're carrying a lot, so it's quite physical. You'll stay warm that way. Now these 3 robes, the lower robe and the upper robe, are what you can see here, but then my Sangati, this is the outer robe, is the same as this, but it's double thickness. Now that in itself can be quite warm. It's used as an overcoat or a blanket, but in conjunction with this and the various ways you can wrap it around yourself, and that's plenty. Now I know you see these monks, I see them with all their fleeces and their jackets and their woolly hats and all of this stuff. Well, that's fine. They're living in communities, in monasteries where they've got a lot of chores. They're having to liaise with the lay people, all day, every day, and lots of busyness. And that's the busyness of community life. Now I've chosen a different way of life, which is why I live in solitude. The best way to do that is not in the Western countries. It's difficult to do that as a monk in my country, in the UK. So that's one reason why I'm here, apart from I just have ended up here anyway, because I can live in solitude as a monk, well supported, and enjoy the monk's lifestyle without any issues of how one interacts with the community outside of your own life. because monks are normal here, as they are in Thailand or Burma, in Buddhist countries, and to some extent, although monks of varying kinds, in India also, and certainly also in Nepal. And I've found, if you're just doing monk stuff, these robes are enough. Now, appreciably, if you're chopping logs, you can't do it in a robe like this. And the little angsa vest thing underneath that we sometimes wear, just for decency, would not keep you warm. So yeah, of course monks have to, if they're chopping logs and using chainsaws or things like that, they're going to need to wear a fleece, aren't they? Even if it's this colour, and a woolly hat, and they probably need in Western countries all kinds of health and safety requirements. But I know I don't have those issues. And if I go to England, you know, I might have to in the near future, just for a visit for whatever reason or another. Some member of my family wasn't well or something like that. I can't think of a particular, there's no reason at the moment. But if it was winter time, I wouldn't take anything more with me. You know, if I was cold, someone would throw you a blanket and you just wrap yourself in it. I don't know. But I think I'd try to do without. Without exception, even when it was snowing and I was walking in snow, I haven't worn socks. I lived for 3 months in a tin box in a field. I say tin box, it was one of those containers, you know, that you have on ships. I lived for 3 months in one of those in a field. It wasn't the year that it went down to -5, but it wasn't far off that. It was -3. It's usually a bit warmer in England when it snows. So although it was a bit warmer because it was snowing, I couldn't get out of my tin box for some time, and I had to actually melt snow for drinking water. And that wasn't easy either. But even in that time, I never wore socks. I had just my flip-flops and bare feet. Now, I did also have some wellies then, some plastic or rubber Wellington boots. But I still didn't wear socks. I put those on. Now, yeah, my feet did get very cold, but we just know this and appreciate that that is just representing suffering, isn't it? So they're doing well. This person says they tend to wear the same clothes to keep it simple, but they have a lot of clothes in the wardrobe and you're thinking of giving them away. So great. If you can give things away like that, then please do. Give them to the whatever those charities are called. I can only think of Oxfam. That's not necessarily one that I'm recommending, but shops that have second-hand clothes. And if you need to get any new clothes, go and buy them from those said shops as well, because you're helping two ways then. Don't go and buy new clothes from the shop when there's perfectly adequate clothes in those charity shops, and the charities do have to sell those clothes on to make the money. So go and buy some nice clothes in the charity shop. You just need a pair of trousers or a skirt and a couple of tops. That's all you need. And some woolly hats, if you're that way inclined. Thank you. I'd just like to ask whether you think of mindfulness. What you think of mindfulness. Let me start again. I'd just like to ask what you think of mindfulness and how we can find it during our daily activities. Do you think that it's a popular word that's now become overused in everyday life and has lost its true meaning a little? Yeah, I mean, in certain areas of business and commerce, I've only heard this, and I don't know this firsthand, but I've heard that health authorities, for example, and I don't know of any other examples because I've been out of the loop for some time, but have mindfulness training. And also I don't know enough about what they're doing there in that to know whether it is what we refer to as mindfulness. Now, in the Noble Eightfold Path, there is samasati, right mindfulness. Sati really means more recollection, remembering. So remembering to be careful, be aware, pay attention. Remembering what's going on. Remembering to bring your attention back to this present moment, here and now, as opposed to anything else. That is right mindfulness. What do I think about it? Well, it's an essential part of our practice. It is the forerunner of all things. Without mindfulness, we're not paying attention to even our thought process, which is what predetermines our next action of either body, speech or mind. So mindfulness is so important. As far as mindfulness in other areas and how it gets used, well, you know, people say, oh, be mindful of this and be mindful of that. It's just a word, a conventional term. We often will go back to the use of these Pali words. It's not to show off the ability, and I certainly don't know many Pali words, but it's because they have a specific meaning to us practicing Buddhists and to those of the northern schools, the Sanskrit words. But I only know from the southern schools the Pali words, those used in the Pali canon, the scriptures of Buddhism in this Theravada tradition, that like sati, samasati, right samasati, mindfulness, is a word that doesn't need, in my mind, translating. Like samadhi, doesn't need to be translated into, some people say, concentration is a bad word, it implies too much effort. Well, yes, concentration strained with effort isn't so good, but you can still concentrate easily when you get good at it. It can still be called concentration. But if we just say samadhi, it's nice. I know what it means, you know what it means. Samasati, samasamadhi, right mindfulness, right concentration. But samasati, samasamadhi is enough. We come to know these words, anicca, dukkha, anatta. We come to feel those words without having to translate them into our own languages. We also have the common language of Buddhism around the world, from whomever you're talking to in whatever country. To some extent, they'll know what you're talking about. So, hey man, I was a little bit worried when I see that salutation. I heard that it's a very long comment as well. I might have to really skip some of this. I heard there can be some nasty side effects from meditation, like racing thoughts and loss of... I'll stop it there. No nasty side effects from samadhi, right meditation. Okay? So really go back to the last question as well. What do I think of mindfulness? And this about meditation. Watch more of these videos. If you want to know more about meditation, you want to know more about mindfulness, it's all I talk about, nothing else. I might talk about living life as a monk compared to living life as a layperson, because they are directly related in that the Sangha, monks and nuns, are dependent on the lay people, laymen and lay women. There's this interdependence that keeps this Buddhist practice alive and has done so for 2,500 years more, and will for hopefully the foreseeable future. The Buddha's prediction was that this Buddhist religion, or sasana, which is a better word than religion because it's a practice of many people coming together with similar aims and goals and mind states, or yes, so with a similar intention of generosity, of developing wisdom, and of practicing meditation. So I've lost track of where I'm going for. Yeah, that's what I talk about. That's what I talk about in all of these videos. And it is often that each and every one of these videos is going to repeat the core teachings of the Buddha in the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. And that is what I am talking about when I refer to meditation and samadhi. So it isn't what there are so many other versions of that practice, yogic practices, different kinds of meditative practices, which I mean I know nothing about, so I won't go into. This is Buddhist meditation as in the Noble Eightfold Path, as what I talk about, and only that I talk about here on this channel. So don't worry about all of this side effects. There are not going to be any. In fact, what you quote as the side effects are what is going to reduce racing thoughts. Now, you say that Buddhism markets a guilt trip about sexuality and engaging in sexual acts. No, it doesn't at all. That's just absolutely wrong. You're not watching Buddhist monks talking to you there. Whatever you're hearing, wherever you're hearing that, is not coming from the Sangha. Yes, the Buddha is the teacher. The Dharma is the teachings of the Buddha. The Sangha are those representatives of those teachings whom are practicing it intensively to its utmost in order to help lay people in their quest, in their practice, to answer all of their questions. But if they're not sanghas, if they're not monks and they're not nuns, and they might be teaching anything else other than the true Dharma, other than what the Buddha taught. And these notions you're coming up with here only come from that. So nobody is saying lay people have to steer away from sexuality of any kind. We, in the third precept, refrain from sexual misconduct. That's all it says. So relationships are fair and mutually beneficial and truthful, and do not harm. And you're suggesting that in this, and I'm not even going to read the rest of that because it gets on to, I did say if it starts with hey man at the end and then you talk about reincarnation stuff. Well, it's not reincarnation, it's rebirth. Again, I've spoken so much on this channel about all of the subjects whom you'll recognize the introduction because not many people say hey man, hey man, back to you, peace and love and all of that. Watch some more Buddhist monks on YouTube talking about the Dharma and ignore everything else you've heard. It's not correct. It's not the teachings of the Buddha. So I'd like to say they truly found... Huh? Oh, I think that's a reply to that previous comment. So I won't read that because it's not from me. So surely it's okay to lie to save someone's life, for example. What is the right approach for when the precepts contradict one another? They don't contradict one another. You can't kill someone by lying, stop someone dying from lying. You know, there's all sorts of strange scenarios people come up with. The question I'll ask you back, which needs no reply, is how often have you been in a situation whereby if you did not lie, someone would die? Now, if you have honestly been in a situation whereby someone was going to die unless you told a lie, then that is the situation, that is the time, that is the place, that is the moment for you or any other person to make that decision as to whether they would lie or not lie, therefore break a precept. Now, there would be those that simply could not do so, and through whatever reasons of karma, it is that person's time to die. But there are those who might decide, yeah, I'll lie. But unless you're in that situation, why trouble yourself with such notions? We are living currently most of the people watching this are living currently in situations whereby that is rarely a question we have to ask ourselves. Hey, if I tell the truth now, someone's going to die. So I know it's a popular question, but what's the reason behind it? You're looking for a reason to lie. Why? It's not going to do you any good or anyone else any good in the long run. It's a precept, the fourth precept, refrain from lying. It's not like right speech, whereas it's a whole different area. It includes not lying, but it includes many other aspects. That's where you could use, you need to use a lot more skill in how you speak in order to avoid telling untruths and to be harmless in what you say. But as far as the precepts are concerned, as I'm always saying, there's no budging on them. You can keep 5 precepts or you can't. But it's more, you won't. We all can. Will we or won't we keep 5 precepts? If you want to attain to Nibbana, you have to keep 5 precepts. So I think I should yes. Probably time to. I was tempted to read the next one because it's kind of along the same lines, but we'll leave that until next time because it covers all the other precepts also. But so. On that note, I mean, I hope there's something in there useful, and if so, please use it. Now, if it's not useful, just let it go. The things I talk about are just what the Buddha teaches us in the Dharma, the precepts, the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path. They're very simple. Now, you may not like them. You may not agree with them. But that doesn't mean I'm going to offer any variation or discussion. As far as I'm concerned, the 5 precepts are what they are, and the Noble Eightfold Path is what we practice in order to develop wisdom, understanding the Four Noble Truths, understanding the characteristics of existence. There's no debating the characteristics of existence, and also right view, which is those characteristics of existence, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self, and that karma, our good actions, has good results, as our bad actions will have bad results, and also that we are reborn, which we can see in the evidence that we are here now, having been born. This practice is about not being born again, being free from rebirth, free from suffering in this lifetime, to attain to Nibbana. And that is possible for both, not just for monks and nuns, but for lay people also, if you practice. But if you don't want to, it doesn't matter. That's up to you. We are all responsible for our own karma, our own actions of body, speech and mind. We don't need to find excuses to blame others. But it's that person's fault that I had to tell a lie, or it's that person's fault that I had to kill, or I have to drink because other people do. You don't have to do anything except keep 5 precepts if you want to attain to Nibbana. And I can't change that because it's the Dharma, and the Dharma isn't some idea, it's just the very clear pointing out of the facts of life, the truth of our existence. And whatever your beliefs, faiths, ideas or philosophies, no one can argue that there is suffering. Identifying the cause of suffering is the way to end suffering. And we do that by following the Noble Eightfold Path. So until next time, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.